Welcome, everyone, to Theoryforge Friday. I am Phantom X, joined, of course, by Sog, Diggs, and Legendary Neurotoxin. You might be wondering what the hell is going on. We decided there's actually a lot of news this week, so we decided to change things up a little bit and go back to our original show, Theoryforge Friday. So how's everyone doing?
Doing good.
Great.
Cool. Yeah, you see our old overlay, episode 57. I think the rest were like 2 years ago, but all right. Winds of change. So I'm trying to remember, actually, as I was sitting here trying to get all this set together. So in the last, 2 days, Daybreak has a new investor, and they're switching H1Z1 to mobile and EverQuest somehow to mobile. Carbine Wildstar shutting down. What am I missing? What am I forgetting?
Eve got purchased.
Correct.
And the single-player MMO Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning got picked up
by THQ. They bought it out from bankruptcy from the whole shilling screw job in 38 Studios and that whole saga. We weren't sure. We thought it was never going to get purchased, that no one was ever going to be able to get that asset. THQ Nordic pulled it off.
I wonder what they spent for that, because that was the thing. With the state of Rhode Island wanted an absurd amount of money to buy it back, or the state of Delaware. I thought it was Rhode Island.
It was Rhode Island.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's see if it actually gives. I'll see if they give a price here. But yeah, that one, I know as soon as I saw this, like, oh my God, Dig's probably freaking out right now. His favorite. Let's see.
My favorite single-player MMORPG. Yeah.
And then I guess something to add, which is not necessarily news, but on a lower level, Ashes of Creation is entering into Alpha 1 as of today. So.
Stress test.
Yes.
The other thing that can kind of piggyback on to the Daybreak news is just a couple weeks ago we learned that H1Z1 Just Survive will no longer be a thing. It was canceled.
Right. So a lot of stuff going on. So a lot to talk about in an hour.
Oh, and WoW. You guys have been playing?
Yes, New World of Warcraft expansion.
And I have a feeling we have a lot to say about that. So there might be a time later that we get to that. I don't know. Since we could probably do a whole show on that. So
if I had to take a guess, it was probably close to the 75 million minus the 2.5 million they were able to squeeze out of shilling in the settlement. So, most of 75 million. But if they've got the resources and they really believe in it, then, more power to them. It's apparently, it's got loyal backers and followers that have been waiting and ready.
So let's talk Kingdoms of Amalur news first. So if you're buying this IP, and we hope that it comes with things like source code to the existing game, what is the first thing you do? First thing I would do is a remaster and port to new consoles. That would be the
single player game.
Of Reckoning.
Yeah. And
because we don't know how far they were in the development of the MMO project and all of that. But if you want to, they bought the IP. So the first thing I would want to do is, get new people exposed to it, get the name back out there as something that's a real game. If you put out a remastered version of Reckoning that on PS4, Switch, Xbox, and PC, tons of people are going to be streaming it. It'll sell for as a full price game, and then from there you've got some revenue. You can start thinking about what you want to do next. But what would you do next? Would you go with that MMO project they were talking about?
I I personally would be looking at what, how far it was, where things were going with it, what would be immediately salvageable versus what would be in the long term, full audit of code and assets. But then the other thing would be trying to find who's actually available from the original team. How many people are actually around that would be able to join back in if there's any of the leads, any of the engineers, artists, etc. That, it's been a little while, but if you're going to have anybody who's going to have a chance at like really looking at that stuff and getting into it quickly, it's the people who worked on it before. And I have to imagine, with the kind of precarious state of the game industry, a lot of them are probably either between jobs or are at a place that, may or may not be going so great. It might be an opportunity to really kind of bring the team back together.
I wouldn't mind them doing a sequel to Reckoning if they could. It's kind of an interesting single-player game, Reckoning is, because the thing that was missing is that it wasn't multiplayer. And then kind of jump into what they could do with Copernicus. I kind of played around with the Reckoning stuff first, because Copernicus was just so deep, I think. One of the things I really loved about Copernicus was the very in-depth languages that they had. Like, I could start to figure out the meanings of their alphabet. I was kind of doing that along the way. But R.A. Salvatore has a really deep lore for that. And I don't know if there's enough to just do that with a focus on Reckoning and a sequel, or what it would mean to try and dive into the
it was
based on his lore.
It was Ari Salvatore, Spawn creator Todd McFarlane, and Elder Scrolls lead Ken Ralston, who that was in 2012.
It came out in 2012, so they were working on it in 2010.
Yeah. So it's been a few years, but
and that's Steve Denuser worked on that team as well.
Didn't he work on it? I believe so. That sounds about right.
Said that, I forgot.
Because that was before he got brought back, right? Did he? I'm trying to remember. So did he do EQ2 and then go there, or did he? Wasn't he at Sony left, came back, or maybe I'm misremembering all that.
I want to say he was there before Sony, and then now he's at isn't he at Blizzard now? Working on he's been there for a little while
now.
Yeah, he was on my radar.
I was gonna say it'd probably be a little harder to pry him away. It sounds like he's got a kind of good situation going on there. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. I imagine it'll be at least a year before we hear any news about what's going to come out of that. But it is pretty exciting that, it's potential that it's one step closer to being out of the grave, right? Like it's not out of the grave until people start actually doing development work. Things start moving, but it's like, the one step closer. The big barrier to there being another game in that line is I can't believe anybody did it. It's impressive.
There's one thing though that I wonder about, how much of the academic and due diligence they were actually able to do if Rhode Island actually let them start doing some sort of a code and asset audit beforehand, as like, well, let us see what we've got first before we can even, determine if we want to buy this or not. And if they did that, they could have been doing that for, 2-3 years or so. At this point, if they actually did that, then they already know what they're getting into, and they can probably start acting on it a lot sooner. They just kind of realize, wait a minute, they might actually be further ahead than we think.
It's just remastered. It shouldn't be too difficult. So.
No. Do you know what engine it was made in?
I don't remember.
If it was proprietary, it's probably not too bad. And if it was like a Unity or Unreal, again, the update's probably going to be a little painful. But once you get through that, you're just fine. In 4K.
I'm kind of out of this one. I never really played that game. Pretty sure you talked me into doing it once. And I just, I don't know. It wasn't for me. Sorry,
because it was made with the Havoc engine.
So probably proprietary. Yeah.
It's a Havoc. I don't know of it.
Havoc was.
Oh yeah, Havoc engine.
Anyways.
So pre-Cry engine.
Yeah, I thought right. That's what led to. Yeah.
No, I feel like Havoc is a different one.
It says Havoc is middleware software suite developed by Havoc. It provides physics engine component and related functions to video games.
Yeah, I think Havoc's more of a middleware. It's an actual game engine.
Whatever it is, I'm pretty sure not really used anymore.
It's all around.
So if we were talking MMO, it sounds like this would probably be, let's take the lore and the idea and apply it to whatever your choice is, Unity, Unreal. Actually, what do they... Who bought it again?
THQ Nordic.
THQ.
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah, I don't
think they have an engine, right? Do they use?
I'm pretty sure they use existing engines, but I honestly don't know. Let's see.
As for is that engine still used? It was actually used for Monster Hunter World.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so
that would not be too bad then. All right.
But there are not a whole lot of titles after 2014. But
they only put triple A's.
Quite a few very popular for PS3 titles, I believe, and some later.
So my thought on this: more MMOs, the better. If they want to go that route, maybe we'll sink and waste a lot of money. But hey, I'm pretty sure there are plenty of people like Diggs who would love to see that come to reality.
I mean, it depends on, again, how close to the original vision they can get. I mean, if they're cutting and slashing a bunch of stuff just to get it out, then I don't know. But I definitely would love to see a remastered version of Reckoning. Sure.
Yeah, I'd play it. I would definitely play through a remastered.
I would try a remastered. I would not go back to trying the other. I just did not. I don't know. Not for me.
So you definitely want to be talking about Daybreak, Phantom X. So where do we start with Daybreak news?
Well, the first one was them talking about how they're rebranding H1Z1 and getting rid of the Just Survive, the original content. Let's try to make a better DayZ than DayZ. And then Battle Royale happened. Then everybody shifted all gears, full stop, for Battle Royale across the industry for some reason. It's like, we can adapt our first or third person shooter into the next big thing, like Dota style MOBAs and TCGs when those got big.
They just couldn't decide which Arma 3 mod to copy. Okay, we think that DayZ is the right one, but let's try Battle Royale also. And yeah, but the original write-ups and the lore teases they were doing for H1Z1 before there was a Battle Royale, all the Just Survive stuff.
I liked that game.
The talk about the survival portion of the game and the zombie AI being interesting, because the thing that made DayZ not as great, in my opinion, DayZ was great as a social experiment of what if you put a bunch of people together and you give them the option to shoot each other or not. but the zombies in DayZ were really stupid. Like they might as well have been rabbits. Like, nobody died to zombies. They died to their friends stabbing them in DayZ. But what they were talking about with that game was having like even forms of communication with zombies and them having like swarming mechanics. Like what did they say? That if you fired a gun, that you should probably vacate that area because the sound would be alerting local zombies that they should be going that way. So you would even have to be careful what kinds of weapons you used. And they were going to have all kinds of amazing building. And even the first iteration we played at SOE Live 2014 had pretty in-depth, good crafting system. I thought that they were. I mean, that game I would have played, but H1Z1 Battle Royale obviously is the moneymaker of the group.
Yeah, definitely. They jumped on the bandwagon early, and they're one of the front runners as a result.
I don't know that the H1Z1 AI was all that great. I keep laughing at Nero having the one zombie trapped on the other end of a railing, and he was just from side to side.
The railing.
Well, it wasn't good, but they were talking about not having implemented that big part yet, that it was supposed to be coming. But I think that instead of working on exceptional AI for zombies, they worked on they started working with PlayerUnknown to build in the PvP mechanics that they wanted to have so that they could, start making money out of what they had. Because if you have a server that's working and smooth for the game, and you have the art assets, then creating game modes where players just shoot other players is easy compared to designing a whole bunch of content for players and making the environment intelligent. But we never got to see that phase that they were talking about.
And now they're taking off the H1 part, so it's just going to be Z1. Is that what I saw? Z1 Battle Royale?
Yeah, there was some sort of change.
And it's just such a weird sort of thing. Yeah, Z1 Battle Royale is what they're just going to start calling it now. It's gone through so many rebrandings. I work at a company that's had products that go through a lot of rebrandings, but they haven't released yet. So that's not the same as like, oh yeah, here's this game we released. Oh, here's a new name. Oh, here's a new name. And I remember once seeing a game company do that on Steam, so that way they could get away from their old bad reviews for a game under the same name, basically. But I don't think they allow that one too much these days. Maybe they pulled that one off with this too. Maybe they did, because it's almost a separate new different direction product rebrand, whatever. But it's such a weird thing. And then the other fun thing, who they partnered with, Nantworks, who is setting up shop right next to the LA Times Center in El Segundo, where, hey, LA Times is apparently going to start broadcasting esports stuff. So they're just going to basically be right next door to a major broadcasting company that just so happens to be starting to get into esports. Hey, who'da thunk it? So it looks like there's a lot more strategy. This wasn't just some like random haphazard decision. This seemed like there was a lot of planning and stuff in the works for a while to pull all of this off.
Well, if I read correctly, the guy that owns, the billionaire that owns this, also recently purchased LA Times. So
yes,
I mean, you're right. That there's a clear reason for buying a minority stake in Daybreak for them.
So it's an interesting sort of joint venture sort of thing. it's something that you always wonder which, and I'm not going to say this as like in any sort of denigrating way, but these days it's like which Chinese company is going to buy up the American company, because that's what's been happening. And I, again, not to say this in any sort of bad way, it's been amazing to me how much Chinese companies have wanted to diversify, and so they'll buy up American companies that they can do stuff with. It's
at what point does Tencent own all of Daybreak?
Yeah. Tencent or whomever. There was a food holdings company that owned a game company at some point. There's all sorts of different interests, and I think that's amazing. I think it's kind of great for the industry too that we can get this gigantic infusion from overseas. Like I remember when Tencent, they basically gave Riot $500 million and said, guys, keep on doing what you're doing. So, of course, and they have been, and I'm sure it's more than paid off at this point.
So, one of the other things that we speculated in this is, and that the joint ventures are going to focus on mobile games, which we know can be very, very profitable. So I'm wondering if some of the partnership has to do with just wanting access to the IPs. That if we take the Final Fantasy mobile game model, or like the Final Fantasy mobile games that come out periodically, and they're not bad, all of the gacha style, but people would probably not even download them if they weren't Final Fantasy ad for extra really long words so that you can Dissidia Omnia Opera.
Yes.
And they're all right games. I've played some of them, but now if you're looking to get into that market, having that brand to put out, that IP to work with, it would not surprise me if the focus is on things like EverQuest gacha games and stuff like that. And they have some, or an expansion of the DCUO stuff even.
Well,
but we don't know what their rights are with that either.
The one that I've talked to people who worked at SOE Daybreak who internally pitched and had heard of other people internally pitching PlanetSide 2 Battle Royale and being shot down every time. And I'm wondering if they were just waiting for a larger investor before they try to do it. It actually makes perfect sense for the lore. If you read into it, basically each continent, as it was first being kind of settled before the respawners were set up, it was basically permadeath for the people that were fighting there. So making like a 50v50 v50 with the three factions, and whichever faction standing at the end, you're the winner. That totally makes sense. That would be so much to the canon lore of the game, it would be ridiculous, and everyone would play NC because it'd be unfair.
And PlanetSide just is releasing a new map.
They've got it. They showed a very early version of it. It's a new one in the works. They're doing something completely different, where instead of having the hard warp points, they now have the battle carriers. They've been teasing for years. And first, they put the battle carriers in as an asset you just see when you've won a continent. They just start filling the sky, and if you're of the other faction, it's like, uh-oh, we're pretty much screwed, and you get kicked off on your next respawn. But as an actual respawn point, it sounds like you're actually going to be able to potentially board them, walk around on them, operate their defense systems, pull your aircraft from them, potentially drop vehicles out from them. I'm not sure exactly to what extent they're going to be able to do all of that stuff, but it's great to see that they're finally incorporating those, and that it's going to add a mobile element to who owns what territory on the continent, rather than it being this like jigsaw of hex-shaped pieces that you're trying to own the bases that correspond to them in sequence so that you can kind of push out the other guys or get enough points to win. So I'm excited to see how it goes, and I think it's a really cool new direction to go with things. They have a lot less bases, so it's going to be a lot more of a strategic focus, and I feel it's going to be a lot better use of the scale and the size and the focus of the engine, because some of the maps right now, they're too dense. They're so big, but they're too dense that you end up having either massive fronts where it's just chaos everywhere, or you've got giant zergs and big gaps where nobody's doing anything. And either way, it doesn't really help. So this definitely concentrates things down. It almost feels closer to a PlanetSide 1 map.
How does PlanetSide fit into this new joint venture mobile studio thing? Because, like, as a PC game, or even as a console game, PlanetSide, it's just a good game, right? It
does what it's there for.
As far as we know, nothing. It does not play a role.
But yeah, we didn't hear anything about PlanetSide in this new announcement, but H1Z1 and EverQuest were mentioned. But we don't know if things just get left out of the...
Well, H1Z1's their big brand, and EverQuest is their foundation brand. So if you're going to put out a press release, don't bore people with also PlanetSide, also DCUO, also all these other properties. They mentioned the other ones that they're involved with, that they do the producing. They do Lord of the Rings Online and Dungeons and Dragons Online, as well as they've got their branding a little bit more obvious on DCUO, and because they've actually been making the content for it. Mm-hmm. And PlanetSide 2, of course, is an original. It's the sequel, technically a double sequel if you want to go way back. So it would make sense if they do something with it later on, but don't announce it, because I could see them wanting to test the waters first and see how this Z1 Battle Royale and the EverQuest mobile stuff works before they expand and start dealing with the other IPs.
So the first thing I'm obviously focused on EverQuest here, trying to wrap my head around this. First thing I want to point out is, how many months ago was it that this whole Columbus Nova thing went? And supposedly, this Russian billionaire now can no longer bring money into the country. And what do you know? A couple months later, we have an investor. But anyways, I'm trying to understand.
Victor Vexelberg.
Trying to understand mobile EverQuest. I don't understand. It sounds like if it's being mentioned in the same as H1Z1 and as a mobile, is it? There had been at least of mine a suspicion when EverQuest Next and everything folded, whether they would take those assets and try to turn it into some sort of similar to Crowfall or something like that, where you have sort of a team-based battle with some of the art assets. And that was based off at the time of some of the job postings they had and what was being listed and things like that. There was a, Myth Warden website that had been registered to them that they weren't supposed to know about, but we found out about. So I'm just trying to wrap my head, what do they mean by mobile? And I almost wonder, because this does seem a lot like... clearly esports is probably the goal here, at least for the investor. That's what it sounds like, right? So why would, because they specifically mentioned mobile H1Z1 and mobile EverQuest. So are they going to try to somehow turn EverQuest into some sort of a competitive game? I don't know what else you would do with it. I'm really intrigued actually to know what their plans are with that. I'm really curious. The other thing two other things. So on the press release also, it does mention that as of yet, the game engine that they will be using is not currently made, and that part of this venture is to work with Daybreak to make it. So who knows how long that will take. And then the other thing that, and I hope this isn't a typo because it came straight from Daybreak, but the link I put there in chat, part of it mentions that Daybreak has it says a well-tested game engine currently running EverQuest and H1Z1, which is not actually accurate. Forge Light was Next and Landmark. It was not EverQuest. unless there was some sort of game already in production that we don't know about that was using it. And that was mentioning that. I don't know. That kind of threw me off too. But I'm really curious as to what does mobile EverQuest mean.
I would like Snipe's idea of taking EverQuest and following the RuneScape move. RuneScape still going strong, new content all the time, huge Twitch following for RuneScape, and now it's available on mobile. And if they could make an MMORPG kind of in that style of RuneScape, like click to move even, or whatever, that is doable on a mobile device and you can play anywhere on your Android or Apple phone, that I think a lot of people would play, and a lot of people are playing RuneScape mobile. So
how do you play an MMORPG on your phone?
I hate that idea. I just hate that idea.
I can see on my iPad, but on my phone? How do you do that? I mean,
it's like
cameras up at a fixed angle, click to move, and then click your hotbar to do abilities and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's all trying to do like a one-touch interface with everything.
I mean, I'm
That's how I would approach it.
I'm a fan of anything EverQuest, so I'll give anything a go. I'll try it out. I've been wanting something new with EverQuest for a long time, but it's still EverQuest mobile. I'm like, okay, all right. So, am I going to be running?
I don't have anything against mobile games. The game I played most last year.
Are you navigating by moving your finger around? I don't understand.
No, it's click to move. So you tap and your character paths.
And if you want to rotate the screen, you twist or something.
More like RF online, kind of like the old school Korean MMORPGs, where how you moved in the game was not with WASD, but you clicked.
You click the position you want your character to navigate to.
Lineage,
Rose
RF online.
Probably no one has ever heard of Rose Online but me. That's another one.
I think, didn't UO even do that?
I did not play
I think UO did that too.
But yeah, it was in the earlier days of MMORPGs, all of the big Asian ones were click to move. It was the American ones were the WASD. So even games that came out like after EverQuest, like click to move was the way. That some of these games, they added keyboard control later on as expanding to Western markets.
Rose Online did that. So anyway.
But yeah, you click to move, you click to target, and you click your hotbar or to cast a spell. I mean, it wasn't conducive to like WoW style mechanics, which is kind of like basically a bullet hell game right now. It's really more like that, because it's about moving your character around to dodge danger while shooting or healing or slashing or whatever. But it's the same. That's what WoW is now. It's just the same as a bullet hell game for the content.
Truly a hotbar dancing simulator.
I mean, but you can say that.
Press the keys.
But it's just like lots of games are like that. It's you move around to avoid danger, and you press a button or a key on the keyboard to use a damaging ability. That's like
That's what like mid-tier and beyond DCUO content was. It's like, oh, I'm this boss with this giant superpower that covers the entire area except the corners. Just go to the corners for a moment. All right, I'm done with my power. I'm vulnerable for like 10 seconds. Go beat me up. All right, I'm doing it again.
You're laughing about this, but you love Binding of Isaac, which is the same thing. You move the character around to dodge stuff, and then you press attack buttons.
Yeah,
right?
But for me, that's more the stativation and the crazy builds. Like the fighting is just the thing that gets me from point A to point B.
But it is like click to move games. That is not a thing. That it's really just about like your character power. So, like, that's where character skill dramatically supersedes player skill for the game. So, like, you know, we're going to talk about maybe what we might get to Wildstar, but Wildstar wanted to go further in the other direction. They wanted to add more player skill into the genre with direction aims and the telegraphs and all of that, and trying to add more about focusing on the player. But if you're going to build a mobile MMORPG using like a click to move style, then it has to become more about the character. So are you engaging something that you have a very good chance of defeating? Are you making the right choices in that encounter? It's almost like speeding up a turn-based encounter, because there's not a lot of movement. Even though it's happening in real time, like you're still just standing there and pressing buttons when you're able to, so it might as well be turn-based. But by not having it turn-based, they don't have to worry about the players next to you ordering turns and stopping play for everyone.
Well, I can say if it turns out to be a good game on mobile, you might not see me ever again, because I'm ready for an EverQuest revitalization. So.
You won't come home from work because you're sitting in your office playing EverQuest on your tablet.
Something like that.
I'd like to see an EverQuest AR game from my mobile device, but
like the Niantic games, like Pokemon Go.
No. Well, I mean more advanced than that, but yeah. But I can just see some AR coming out in 5 or 10 years, but.
No.
I think you got to find the companies with the data. That there's only one of them right now, and it's owned by Google.
Hopefully, we'll learn more going forward. So, all right. So, what's next? We have either Eve or Wildstar.
Wildstar. We didn't do WoW. Did we do WoW? We can save WoW for last, but. Wildstar, let's segue since it's been mentioned a little bit.
Yep. So we know it went free to play. It was like 2 or 3 years back, I want to say, and it, they tried to hang on, they tried to do the thing, but just didn't last. So they've made the announcement that it's going to be closing down soon. Both the studio itself is shutting down, and Wildstar is shutting down, and the team is. Unfortunately, out of luck. They're going to have to be looking for jobs.
Did all of us play Wildstar? I remember playing Wildstar. I mean, it came out shortly after we started doing Theoryforge.
I think when I
played a little bit.
When I got to the second zone and I was talking to the NPC I saw and got quests from in the first zone, who I also saw in the intro sequence, I decided I didn't want to play it anymore, because how boring can you be that you're just going to ferry the same quest giver along instead of at least introducing me to new people in each zone? That was pretty much like immediate quit uninstall for me. As soon as I saw that guy in the next zone, I think I was live streaming it when I did it too. I was just like, nope, I'm done. All right, next game. Switch to something else.
I think they had some good ideas, but the world didn't keep me. I think that was really the only.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with you there. I did like some of the combat mechanics. I did like that it had kind of a telegraphing system, and that there's like a little bit of like a combo sequencing sort of thing, if I remember correctly. And that's stuff that was good. That's stuff that I'd wanted to see in MMO. So I was glad to see that. But half mechanics and half content, and they might have had some of the mechanics, but yeah, the content, everything from like character selection all the way to when I stopped playing. The idea that this is cold cut lines for what the factions are. You can't be anything other than a paladin or a rebel, basically, and that's to me kind of bogus, because that means nobody else exists in the universe, basically.
I don't know. I think lots and lots of games have these kinds of issues. But one of the good things that Carbine has done over the years is that as other game companies have been laying people off, and as other projects have folded, they've done a pretty good job of making themselves available as a home for developers. And the rough thing here is that, Felgon tweeted earlier, like, they just hired some more people recently.
Is Felgon working there?
Yeah, he's been a producer with Carbine. He said he's going to be fine, but they just hired some new people, and it's an industry where people have to move around, and projects die, and a lot of times projects get killed before anyone even knows about them. And if you want to work in the industry, you've got to you got to be okay with that. But when people just take the new job and have to start looking right away, and they didn't add to their resume because they just signed on for the sunset of a project, unless they want to be a game sunsetting expert. And I don't think people get into game development to kill games.
Nope.
Did I read right? Was there some sort of unannounced project too, or there was speculation of that, and we don't really know?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But with the end of Wildstar, Carbine is shutting down their office. I'm sure some people at Carbine will find homes in other NCSoft studios, but there are going to be a lot of people just looking for work.
Yeah, I never. I played Wildstar for a while. I can remember the hype. I mean, that was a big time game that had been a lot of people talking about.
Yeah, their website actually has this thing with a little construction sign in. Is that Japanese? That says new projects.
Yeah,
the future is an exciting place to be. Carbine's currently working on another exciting new projects. Blah blah blah. Job opening. So yes, they were apparently looking to expand to new stuff, and that's likely what the new hires were for, and that really sucks.
Yeah, I played for a little while. I don't remember what. I think it just wasn't interesting.
The people that I've watched or followed on Twitter that played it quite a bit kind of really commented a lot on housing being very good, rating being pretty good.
Well, that was one of their big selling points at the launch. They wanted to target the high-end Warcraft raiders and give them content that was better able to show off their player skill. That it was like rating the way rating was really meant to be, rating for raiders, not rating for WoW casuals, but and a lot of the game focus was on that, but the core player base of an MMORPG is not the top 1% that does the hardest 40-man raid content. And it's almost like by satisfying that group, it was when Warcraft realized that they couldn't just focus on that 1%. So they started focusing on the 99% that then Wildstar was there to satisfy 1% of Warcraft, which is still a huge amount of players. Don't get me wrong. Like, if you can get those people, but MMORPGs need a mass of players to exist. Like, it can't feel empty.
Yeah.
So I think that's where free to play could have been the future. I don't know why, but the game didn't keep me, and it could have. When it went free to play, I got into it. I played through several zones. I leveled a character for a while, and I was just done. Yeah, I just didn't feel the need to play.
I mean, I'll be fair that ever since I quit like vanilla WoW right before the first expansion hit, I really haven't been able to play any MMO whatsoever for more than a little while. Eve was the game that I played immediately after. After I played it for a year, I realized, oh crap, I've only played it for a year now, and I can just finally start playing the game. Great. So I quit that. And pretty much since then, anytime I try to touch an MMO, it usually goes pretty bad unless it's something very specific. PlanetSide 2, sure, I love that. Defiance, I actually really enjoyed a lot of that game too, to be perfectly honest. I think those were really the only ones that I actually played and came back to. And aside from that, like since 2013, I've been back and forth with Warframe, so that's not an MMO, but it's been there for me.
I think it could be. You could argue what an MMO is, but I think Warframe's close enough. So it's as much of an MMO as Guild Wars, the original, was.
Yeah, 4-player co-op. It's not. I don't.
So it's a MMORPG. It's an MMORPG, but not massively. What about the lore for Wildstar? Did you care about it?
No, I wanted it to go away.
Yeah,
Wow.
same.
So
Again,
What's wrong with you, Cupcake?
I'm done with factionalism. Give me people that are there for a damn reason. Like, you go and, like, my brother's been reading through Dune and, like, telling me about all the various different groups and factions and why they're there and how they ended up, and, like, the way that it was all written. It makes sense. Like, there isn't necessarily a good or an evil so much as these are what these people did to get by, and, given their circumstances. And we don't get that when it automatically starts as, oh, you're the good guys doing the good fight. Oh, you're the bad guys and you're a bunch of rebels trying to stick it to the man. It's like, I don't care about either side. Just let me be a dude that's like a merchant or, a farmer or something that, maybe has to fend some weird creatures off every now and then, like some carrots that run away or something.
Yeah.
Like, that's it gets boring. I'm done with good versus evil. If I only have two factions to pick, that's not a choice. I'm done.
Right. That's right.
So that kind of brings us into, you mentioned Eve. You played that for a while. I
played that for a year, yeah.
That seemed to catch everyone off guard, right? At least it did me. I mean, on social media it seemed to, because I've never really played Eve. I follow a lot for the story. I think I've mentioned actually several times. Even in PC Gamer and some others, they have some really great articles just on the stories that come out of that game and the fighting and the backstabbing and the wars. But for everything, it seemed like they had been doing very well for it's been around for what, 15? I mean, it's been around a long time. And this just seemed to be kind of out of nowhere.
Well, if you read about why and what this really means, that even though there was an ownership stake purchase, like $450 million or something, yeah, $425. The idea here is that Black Desert does some things very well, and they have a very loyal player base. Eve does some things very well, and they have a very loyal fan base and player base. So when we've got two good games that are pretty different, then it's what can we do together? What can we take from everything that we've learned from these two successful launches and successful operations of games, and how can we then make our next thing? Like, what is now we have what we need. We have all of these BDO people and all of these EVE people. I think that it's about setting up to start working on a new project. And they talked about keeping the teams working on what they have separate and keep doing what you're doing, and then bringing people in for collaboration and building from there. So I think that it makes sense that if you want to spend, $1 billion on making an MMORPG or whatever, that now you have what you need to do that. It's just hope that the people that they bring in, the other people that they bring in, and their concepts are good. And hey, two successful MMORPG companies working together to make another MMORPG. Okay, I'm looking forward to seeing what they start doing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the good positive, if you're play EVE, is that it was clearly bought by a company who seems to know what they're doing. They have, I mean, when you look at numbers, they're one of the few that are on Steam charts or on Steam, so you can kind of get a good idea a little bit as far as player swings and movement. But they have a consistently fairly high population of people, so they do something right. I mean, I would assume behind probably WoW and Final Fantasy. I mean, I assume they're probably not far as a number 3, number 4 position.
Fantasy Westward Journey is the number 1 position.
I'm wondering if EVE could be tweaked into something that I'd be interested in playing. That would cause a lot of people to hate the game.
If you stayed in high security and just did merchanty and mining sort of stuff, I could see EVE being something you'd enjoy.
But have you played Black Desert? You might enjoy Black Desert.
Why?
I mean, it's the kind of like harsh environment, I'm pretty sure there are large RP factions playing that game as well. Like, not factions in the term of like,
right, I understand,
Alliance and Horde, but they've got, I think, spend some time reading some more about that game. I think both of these games have interesting things to offer, and they have people playing them consistently.
Oh yeah, I'm just wondering, because I'm more like casual. I'm a casual challenge, hardcore time person. And EVE is not that for me. It's too hardcore challenge for me. But yeah, I just wonder.
I think Black Desert rewards hardcore time.
Okay.
But I think there may be quite a bit of PvP involved in both. I know in EVE, obviously, but I think in Black Desert there is as well. I don't know a ton about the game, but I know the people that play it love it.
Yeah.
So we are close to the end. I don't know that we'll have time.
So just mention WoW quickly, since you guys are playing it. And I'm gonna start playing it this weekend. So.
I got nothing to say about WoW.
I think Saga and I have a tale of two different experiences.
Oh.
I'm having a great time, but I put in the effort to find people to play with, which I think was the key, because I now have 2 level 120 characters. And the first one was playing a character that I had previously, and I leveled it up, and no one in the guild is around, and I was only playing with pickup groups, and I felt like I was playing the game alone. But then I rolled a new character. I'm playing in the same guild as Skylatron, who's been on our show several times before. and I used to work with her, so that's good. And there are plenty of people in that guild, and they're active, and I've always got things to do. I can log in and ask if somebody wants to do something, and it's a pretty good social experience. And now my bunk, for people who follow World of Warcraft's item level 344, and I'm only doing 5-person dungeons. I'm not doing the big group raiding. I'm not doing any scheduled time stuff. My thing is, I log in, I do world quests if I feel like it, or I ask people if they need a healer for a dungeon, and I do that. And I'm feeling none of the pressure, none of the bad thing, none of the things that made me just not want to play, and I'm having a pretty good time playing WoW for what WoW is. And I'm not expecting it to be my dream MMORPG with interesting mechanics and intelligent AI. No, I see it like I play a co-op, bullet hell game, like I was saying. Like, what I do is I go in with a group of people and we dodge bullets and we damage enemies. That's what WoW instances are. Except with this expansion, they've made some good changes that instead of it being the 5-man dungeons just being about, is the tank strong enough and can the healer keep up, it really involves the skill of all of the players. Like this, I think Battle for Azeroth is like the DPS expansion. Like, DPS players have to be smart. They have to play well. Like, the group relies on the damage dealers doing the right things at the right times and playing very well. And the tank and the healers are there to kind of manage the operation around them. And it just feels well done.
That seems like a lot more of an arcade experience than the conventional MMO sort of fight. And that actually sounds appealing to me. It's just, if you could refine all of my special abilities to some combination of like left click, right click, and keys that are within my WASD area. Like, well,
that's how I do it. I bind everything to my mouse or 1, 2, 3 and use shift to modify it. So I might as well be playing with a controller. Right?
That's kind of sounds like fun.
I mean, most of their expansions, the dungeons start off challenging and usually get nerfed over time. I mean, I'm not, but that generally
not since Legion, because the challenge now scales with however you want it to scale. A normal dungeon is really just a storyline experience, right? You go through, and if you die, then you take a moment to figure it out, but you really just shouldn't die. And you play on heroic mode, and you can ignore some of the mechanics and just kind of power through it. But now with the mythic keystones, the mythic level, you can do, if you beat the dungeon with your keystone in a certain amount of time, it upgrades it to the next level. So if you have a +2 keystone, it can become a +3 or +4 if you complete the encounter in the time, which means then you have the ability to unlock that mission, but on like 40% damage and enemy health bonus. And then if you're able to complete that within the time, you can upgrade it and continue. So you can push the content difficulty. The players push the content difficulty themselves. So it's totally up to the player what difficulty you want to play at. Not like it used to be where, for the first year of the expansion, only the 1% can play the hardest content, and you have to wait until it gets nerfed to being meaningless before you can even experience the story. And nobody actually knows what happened to Illidan and Black Temple or that. No, and I'm really happy with it. And I could talk for a whole show about why I am happy with Battle for Azeroth.
Which we may actually do. Did you like enough of the story to keep going, Phantom X? What happened with you?
So I'm glad you mentioned story a few times. The story. So the way I see this, Blizzard with time, their storytelling has improved, just continued to improve with time. Like they do really well telling stories. I mean, even in games you wouldn't expect great storytelling, like Overwatch. You know, it's a shooter game, but they have great stories. But the gameplay seems there are parts of it that have not improved along with the story. So my thing is, you know, the first 30 minutes of Battle for Azeroth, I mean, it's great. You're continuously in a story. There are cutscenes, and then you kind of get to where, okay, here's a quest hub. You need to go kill 12 of these things. Go kill 8 of those things.
It amazes me that you have this feeling about it, because what you talk about wanting in a game is this like open world where you can just farm and go out and do what you want whenever. But what you hate about Warcraft is when it becomes an open world game and you have choices.
But it's not. No, I don't have choices. I cannot continue that story. That little question mark will not pop up on the main storyline until I have completed some stupid side quest that has no bearing on the story. Now, if I had the option, especially in a system now where the game will level with me, you know, it'd be different if...
So you want an on-rails story told for you.
That's what it is anyways, except they're putting in 500 little quests that don't mean anything.
I don't know, you could go find other things to do.
I mean, it already is an on-rails story. But
if that's how you want to play it.
That's how everyone plays it. That's how everyone plays it, because that's how you have to play it. I mean,
okay. So I need to get popcorn. This means when are we gonna do this next week, or are we gonna do it in 2 weeks?
I don't know. But
when are we gonna do a WoW show?
The root of the problem is a leveling system. WoW does not need a leveling system anymore. That is the problem. Okay.
I can't wait. We got to do them. Okay.
There's plenty to talk about.
It is a waste of time. And I'll leave it at that. All right, we are we are at the end of the show. Yeah, we had been talking about doing, I think, a WoW show for a while because, you know, Saga and I played Legion together for a while. I mean, and I've historically enjoyed WoW, but this expansion, there's just sort of been sort of some differences. I feel like a large part of that is probably just where I'm at with what I want to do with my time. But anyways, yeah, we could go on and on. So,
and we will.
All right.
You have to play for the next week or two.
That's right. So. I'm going to.
All right.
Well, all right, guys. We will. Yeah. So what we'll maybe try to do, you know, since we are supposed to be still talking about Chronicles, maybe we'll just try to fit in kind of an off time. Although that doesn't really work for you, Nero. But we'll figure it out. So we'll let y'all know when we're going to be on. We'll definitely be on in 2 weeks, and if we're going to have a surprise show in a week, we'll make sure everyone knows. But thanks for joining us for a sort of throwback to Theoryforge Friday. Everyone have a great weekend.
See you later.
See ya.